When I bet, I like getting something back, even if I lose. That's why I bet with Fanatic Sportsbook. When I place a bet with them, I earn fan cash, win or lose. I can flip fan cash into bonus bets or use it for new team apparel on Fanatics.com. Download the Fanatic Sportsbook app and let the fan cash flow. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Connecticut residents call 888-789-7777. Massachusetts residents call 800-327-5050. New York residents call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Maryland residents visit mdgamblinghelp.org. All right. That was a nice little break. Welcome to an emergency live stream, although it doesn't really feel like that much of an emergency because when Jeremy and I signed off, I feel like an hour and 20 minutes ago, whatever it was, it seemed like we were heading in the direction of a Jordan Clarkson signing. And then I guess about a half hour ago, Chris Haynes was the first one to break the news, making it official, saying that Jordan Clarkson, who was waived by the Utah Jazz earlier today, will indeed sign with the New York Knicks. Yes, there we go. Nice little breaking news from Chris Haynes. No, just as notable, or I think it's at least just as notable, Steph Bondy reporting actually before Haynes broke the news that Clarkson would be signed to the veterans minimum as opposed to the taxpayer mid-level exception. So in terms of New York's cap sheet, it's a difference of about $3 million. In terms of Jordan Clarkson's pocketbook, it'll be a difference of closer to $2 million, as Jeremy Cohen is here just in time for the money talk. Hi, Jeremy. Hello. Long time no
Hello,
talk.
John. Indeed, of course, it would happen after we jump off the stream, but that is life. So
it did give me a time to move 3 very large pieces of furniture to my curb. So I'm thankful that it allowed for that before my wife went to bed. So yeah, just talking about how veteran minimum signing as opposed to the taxpayer mid-level, which we suspected it might be, notable for several reasons. The money difference in terms of New York's cap sheet, it'll well, I mean, actually we shouldn't jump the gun. It's possible. We don't know. It's possible. They may still use the taxpayer mid-level exception to sign someone. I'm not sure if there's anyone out there at this point who would be worth it that you would expect to take that amount. My assumption is that with Clarkson signing the vet minimum, I would assume at this point that they will not sign anyone to the mid-level. Do you make the same assumption?
I don't think we can.
Okay, that's fair.
I understand why it's a safe assumption to make. It's just then it's the thought of, all right, again, I'm very intrigued by the Clarkson and Kolek of it all.
Gotcha.
And that's where it comes into, where it's like, are we not seeing Kolek? Are you playing Clarkson and Kolek or Clarkson and Brunson and then seeing other minutes with Kolek? Usually what the Knicks have done is they've been comfortable with 3 point guards. I'm not counting Deuce in this conversation, right? They've been comfortable with 3 point guards. They've had Brunson in the last few years. They've had someone who they feel can run the ball in the half court, and if they can't, they acquire them. And then they've got a third player who is really not an option, but just in case of emergency, they have them. Whether it was DeLon Wright, you go back to the days of Ryan Arcidiacono. Like they've consistently found, we've got Brunson, we've got a backup, and we have someone who is the third string. I would be very surprised if Kolek were the third string. And then
as opposed to the fourth string.
Well, what I'm saying is there a world where Kolek's no longer on this team because of Clarkson's emergence with, is it Kolek plus something? And then you fill out the bottom end of your roster because, like, for example, if we're talking about a DeLon Wright type,
okay,
you know, who else is that? I would say Trey Jones would be another type of player, but he's signed. Talen Horton-Tucker is another type of guy that fits that mold where it's can defend a little bit, hits guys in the corners. If you're relying on them, you're probably in trouble, but you can maybe get some spot minutes in case of emergency. Now, the Knicks might have a coach that's comfortable, to your point earlier, running with Brunson and Clarkson and Kolek. But that's a lot of defensive liability when you already have Karl Anthony Towns at the 5.
Sure.
Which just leads me to wonder, is Kolek sitting on the bench and in that third role? And you could do worse than having the third string point guard be Tyler Kolek. But also you've invested, to your point earlier, the most money at any point as of last year in a second round pick ever. You've also traded several second round picks to move up for the opportunity to draft him. How slowly are you bringing this player up? Do you feel like he needs an additional year to be able to fill the backup point guard spot? By that point, he would be in the third year of his contract.
Yeah.
At the end of the third season, that's when he'd be eligible for restricted free agency. So that's really the most fascinating piece of this to me.
Okay. I have a most fascinating piece to me that it's funny. We talked a lot about Clarkson on the 3+ hour show we did, and this did not come up once. I will bring it up in a second. As for Kolek, I think the Knicks are in a nice spot with Kolek, and I think Kolek is in certainly a low pressure spot as of right now if they don't do anything else. Because if you're the Knicks, you have essentially 2 combo guards now in Deuce Bride and Jordan Clarkson, who have both shown themselves very capable of playing 30 minutes plus if you need them to. But at the same time, and both of those guys, if you need them to nominally run the point, they could run the point. Is it the strength of either of them to be running the point? Maybe not, but they can. They could also play off of someone who's running the point. So I think what the Knicks have done with this move is given themselves some optionality, some more versatility to their roster in a sense. I want to be careful not to make this out to be anything other than what it is, which is like, as we talked about already, you're signing a very defensively challenged guard who is not someone that you are going to be able to probably play significant minutes alongside Jalen Brunson, to say nothing of Karl Anthony Towns, against a playoff opponent who, is gearing up to, exploit every weakness you give them. But from a positional versatility standpoint, it does accomplish that goal. And just to close, it's fresh in my mind, to close the loop on the topic that I brought up a minute ago. I know we're all over the place as far as the mid-level. I'm not the only person who thinks this, I'm sure. I think the only guy who I would probably feel comfortable using the taxpayer mid-level on at this point would be Al Horford. Looking at and who would realistically take it? Like, obviously, Miles Turner is still out there. Miles Turner's not taking that amount of money. You look at some of the other guys. Schroeder's already rumored to be going to Sacramento. I don't think Schroeder makes sense for this team, given what he's surely looking for. There's a Brogdon out there. Some people like Brogdon. I think with the Clarkson signing, I'm good in the combo guard department. There are some other guys that you could spitball about that maybe they make sense. Horford's the one guy who I would say I would go and I would make the move or use the taxpayer for him. But that's me. And if they don't wind up using it, I won't begrudge them.
So Golden State right now, for whatever it's worth, has $25 million in apron space. Okay. They let Kevon Looney walk.
Yeah.
They have access to the full non-taxpayer mid-level exception.
Yeah, he's probably going to go there.
Right. So if Horford's off the table, again, I would still like to consider Yabusele with that,
that's
depending
fair.
on what his market is, because and at a certain point, I can also get people thinking, well, how are the Knicks going to play defense? How is insert coach here going to do that if you have Brunson and Cat and Clarkson and Yabusele? And I get all of that entirely, but he's a talented player who hits shots above the break at a really high rate, and you can find someone offensively who doesn't do the same thing as Cat, but has commonality where it's okay. If Cat misses games, you've got someone to slot in a way at the 5 that does a little bit more, or maybe it's at the 4. Maybe it isn't just moving Mitch up into the starting lineup. Maybe it is, but maybe you also have him coming off the bench in Yabu with Josh Hart. So he's assuming Horford's out of the picture, and I agree with you about why he'd be of interest. I'd still be comfortable with Yabusele as an option with the taxpayer mid-level.
It's interesting. We haven't heard much about Yabusele yet. Like his name hasn't been floated about, which is, I wonder, is that an indication that, I don't know what that's an indication of. I mean, it may not be an indication of anything. Maybe it's an indication that maybe teams aren't quite as interested in him as we might have thought. I don't know. We'll see. Getting to what I was saying before, what I think is the most significant aspect of this, or at least as significant an aspect of this as anything that we could talk about on the court. Last I checked, Jordan Clarkson was still a clutch client. Is he not?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He is.
The last clutch client to play for, and the only clutch client, I think, to play for the Leon Rose regime was Nerlens Noel, right?
No.
Who was?
Well, Cam Reddish.
Oh, how could we forget Cam Reddish?
And also, I believe Jericho Sims entered the league as a clutch client.
Okay, I'd forgotten that one.
I think so.
Did the Cam Reddish thing work out very well?
It did not.
It did not. And then I think whatever faint remains of the relationship that Clutch had with the Knicks front office, like they were embers after the Cam Reddish experience. Here we have Jordan Clarkson, who I don't know if he could have made more money with another team. Maybe he could have, maybe he couldn't have, but is deciding to come to the Knicks to play for the veterans minimum.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think that's notable. And I don't necessarily think it means everything, but I don't think it means nothing either. So that's my 2 cents.
He has an opportunity to see significant time for a contender. It doesn't matter who your agent is, and what kind of beef he may or may not have had with the head of an organization. It's a great landing spot for him at 33. Just turned 33. So it's appealing at the very least. Does it set him up for the future? Maybe it does. Maybe he can use this as a landing spot. But I think that I don't want to say the days of him getting anything more than the veteran minimum are over. They shouldn't be. But it's harder to invest heavily in those types of guards. They're just not really the type that gets paid that late, unless they're a much higher caliber.
Evidence shows that once you go veterans minimum, you don't go back. If he goes out there and he has a hell of a year as like the 6th man for the Knicks, I mean, would you be shocked if he got another payday next summer? I wouldn't.
Well, I'd be a little surprised, just a little bit, but not overwhelming. You know what I mean?
It's
because then he'd be 34. It's harder to do. You're entering like Jamal Crawford aging out of his best time. He was still a good player offensively, still a bucket, but
that actually makes me want to look up, when did Jamal Crawford win his final 6th man of the year award? You want to take a guess? I'm looking it up right now. How old was he?
How old was he?
I'll say take a guess.
Probably 36, 37.
Very close. He was 35.
Okay.
with the Los Angeles Clippers. He won it in the 2015-16 season. Man,
Sure.
the guy won 3 freaking six-man of the and finished second one year. Anyway, look, we'll see what happens with Jordan Clarkson next summer. That should not be our concern right now. Our concern right now should be the present moment. I just thought the clutch thing was interesting. Sure. On the court, so again, it ties into the veteran minimum part of it, because I think oftentimes we tend to make a bigger deal out of guys who are signed to the veteran minimum, and then at the end of the day, it's like the safest thing to lean back on is like they're veteran minimum players for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to be cautious about making too big of a deal about what this might mean or doesn't mean or portends for the season, and how the front office sees what they're like, what they envision. But it's really tough for me to read this as anything other than a direct repudiation of a lot of the things that Tom Thibodeau was kind of known for over the last few years. Yeah.
Why is that?
Because this is a small guard who is absolutely an offense-first guard who, again, is like, is it possible he comes in here next year and plays, campaign minutes, maybe a little bit more, 15, 16 minutes a game? I guess it's possible.
Sure.
Over the last 3 years, Jordan Clarkson is average. I'll go to the last 5 years. So when he won the Sixth Man of the Year award in Utah, he averaged almost 27 minutes a game. Next season, 27 minutes a game. Next season, 32.6 minutes a game. He started all 61. Next season, 30.6 minutes a game. And then last season, came off the bench 28 times out of 37 games. Averaged 26 minutes. Again, for a team that was trying to lose games. So I just don't think they would have come to this agreement if there were not some assurances that, like, hey, you're going to be, if not our sixth man, like maybe our like co-sixth man or something along those lines. So that means you're going to be playing a lot of minutes with 2 defensively challenged guards, with Jalen Brunson and Jordan. Maybe not a lot of minutes. Maybe it's 10, 15 minutes a game with Jalen Brunson and Jordan Clarkson. But that's 10 to 15 minutes, more minutes per game than Tom Thibodeau would have played.
Maybe. It's also, if he were in the system, would Tibbs have trusted Clarkson a little bit more and given Brunson just enough, right? Because the whole thing, obviously he wants to lean. I know you're looking at me like that, but we know that that he leans on his stars, obviously.
Yeah.
But he also, if he trusts a player, he's going to trust them. Question would be, would he trust Clarkson enough offensively? And I'm with you that he probably sees more time in whoever's system is next than with Tibbs. But if we're talking about the Cameron Payne role, and Cameron Payne sometimes would still play 15, 18 minutes depending on the circumstance. It wasn't the most frequent, but it did happen. You've got what Jordan Clarkson does is he takes mid-range and above the break threes. He can hit corner threes too.
Short mid-range.
Right.
He lives in the short mid-range. Yes.
But primarily in the short mid-range. Absolutely. But, and you know me, I'll cite this until the cows come home. Corner 3 assists. It's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
If you're looking at points, or if you're looking at assists per 100 possessions,
okay,
minimum 500 minutes played.
Okay.
Jordan Clarkson last year ranked 28th in the NBA. 28th.
It's pretty high.
That is high. It's also it's 28th out of 375 players. The other thing to consider, John, what do you have to do in order for an assist to become an assist?
What do you have to do? You have to make a pass.
You have to make a pass, and then what is the other?
They have to score.
Right. And what does Utah not do a good job of?
Scoring baskets.
So to be 28th in assists per 100 possessions for one of the worst team in the NBA, that's got to mean something to the Knicks, who did not find players in the corners at a higher frequency than one would have thought. And when other teams lapped them in ways that they just hadn't gotten there before. So when you talk about whatever system they have, maybe it's different than what Tibbs would have had. But the idea that the Knicks are going to get a head coach that also does things so radically different. Like, that's why I think their next head coach is going to have tremendous overlap with Tibbs, especially on the offensive portion, but then significant differences. And the finding guys in the corners, that's not going to go anywhere. And Clarkson is a perfect person to do that.
Well, to your point about finding corner, like what do you have to do to find corner shooters? You have to drive. Last season in Utah, Jordan Clarkson averaged 12 drives per game. To give you some context on that, Donovan Mitchell, who played 31.4 minutes, so about 5.5 more minutes per game than Jordan Clarkson, averaged essentially the exact same number of drives per game, 12.1 to Clarkson's 12.0. Now, in Jalen Brunson, the Knicks have one of the league's preeminent drivers of the basketball. The only person who drove more frequently than Jalen Brunson last season was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So, no one, he's not up around where Brunson is, but even on a per minute basis, Brunson, 17.8 drives in 35.4 minutes played. So on a per minute basis, as a driver of the basketball, Jordan Clarkson is not that far off from Jalen Brunson. Now, the big difference on drives, Jalen Brunson is shooting 55% on shots he takes out of drives. Jordan Clarkson, not quite so good, 45.6%. Now he does, to your point, dish, a fair bit on those drives. I'm just looking his pass percentage on drives, 37.8. That's actually not that far below Jalen Brunson's pass percentage on drives. So they both do it somewhat infrequently. Or somewhat frequently, I should say, not infrequently. That's a good number. So in that sense, he is like very similar to Brunson. Brunson takes some bad shots too. The difference is Brunson just makes more of them than Jordan Clarkson. So Clarkson he's a typical six man. Like, he's going to come in, he's going to monopolize your offense. He's going to do oftentimes what you're like, play a similar way to how your star does. He's just not going to do it as efficiently. I will still say, I think this is an acknowledgement by the front office that if we are going to win big, we need to lean further into offense as opposed to trying to, kind of have our cake and eat it too. And I guess the other part of it would be, and if this isn't a direct repudiation, I don't know what would be. If you're signing a guy that is probably going to play 20 plus minutes a game, and we have reason to believe that the front office has a lot of faith in Deuce McBride and maybe wants Deuce McBride to play a bigger role in this team, right? And he's going to play a ton of minutes. What is that all going to add up to? It's all going to add up to fewer minutes for the starters, which it makes for an interesting conversation about Mike Brown. Because if it's one thing Mike Brown did a lot of in Sacramento, at least, it is he played his starters. Maybe not as many minutes as Tibbs, but he played them a lot together. And they were a very frequently used lineup, when he was the coach of Sacramento. So all this stuff kind of ties together. As far as just like the simple, most basic question, does Jordan Clarkson get them 0.5% closer to winning a championship next year? I don't know. Can we make that argument?
Well, can I run some numbers by you based on how he performed last season that are applicable?
I love numbers.
Great. These are mostly percentiles. This is through B-Ball Index. For why I think the answer to your question is yes, even if it's not a yes or no question in terms of elevating the percentage. So last year, B-Ball Index ranked Jordan Clarkson in the 92nd percentile in overall shooting talent, in the 91st percentile in overall shot creation, in the 89th percentile in overall shot making, in the 86th percentile in overall shot making efficiency. Now here's the snag: playing in Utah, 11th percentile in half-court openness rating. So there really weren't too many opportunities for him to do his thing, leading to an overall shot quality of 1th percentile. The 1th percentile.
1th?
1th.
That's
1th?
not a word.
Yeah,
it's not a word.
It's one up from 0th. It's not second. It's the first. Yeah, thank you. It's been a long day. The 1st percentile.
I prefer Woneth.
We'll stick to Woneth. And 11th is just 10 Woneth. That's, we'll just keep it that way. Self-created shot making, a big thing, 93rd percentile. Self-created shot making efficiency, 91st percentile. Self-created shot quality, right? The ability to create that quality looks because of your team members and the structure. Once again, 1th or 1st percentile, as some might say. Off-ball shot making, 73rd percentile. Off-ball shot making efficiency, 71st percentile. Off-ball shot quality, 1th percentile once again. Half-court shooting talent, right? This is his ability to perform in the half-court. 92nd percentile. Half-court shot creation, 91st percentile. Half-court shot making, 89th percentile. Half-court shot making efficiency, 86th percentile.
This is wild.
And lastly, half-court shot quality. John, you want to guess what percentile it is?
Half-court shot quality?
Mm-hmm.
1th?
You got it. You won at the prize. So that's the thing. It's basically saying the data. If you're like, Jeremy, why did you throw out all these numbers? I don't understand them. The data is saying that from a player who's able to do something with the ball, especially in the half court where the Knicks have excelled and need to do an even better job. They stagnated at times, but this is a player who has found significant success just last year. And there are plenty of warts. We can talk about those warts. A lot of them are going to be on the defensive side. But in terms of finishing, he was in the 84th percentile in rim shot creation. And when you think about pick and rolls and spacing that's created and then getting Jordan Clarkson downhill, to your point earlier, it all adds up and it leads to better offense than the Knicks would have had. And I don't want to sit here and say Jordan Clarkson, steal of the free agent market. But I'm telling you that I was not anticipating Clarkson being an option. I did not think he would be bought out. I'm glad that he did, because there's value for him to provide. Significant value in a way that the Knicks could really use help with a bench that ranked dead last in points per game last season.
Look, I'm here for it. I am absolutely I am willing to go on this journey, so to speak, with a player who, as you just noted, with a lot of those numbers, has a very, very clear skill set. I'm just looking it up now. He is one of 8 players in the league last year who was assisted on fewer than a quarter of his shot attempts at the rim, who played at least 900 minutes. The other players, Anthony Simons, Damian Lillard, James Harden, Spencer Dinwiddie, Donovan Mitchell, Davion Mitchell, and LaMelo Ball. So you got a couple of all-star caliber players in there, and then just some guys who are certainly known for their scoring. Jordan Clarkson he is really, really good at getting into the lane. And again, if you look at the assist rate, this is not a guy who is going to put his head down and just shoot blindly every time. Now, he fell into some terrible habits in Utah, perhaps none, and those habits were perhaps never more on full display than against the Knicks last season, when Mike Breen was having an out-of-body experience because he was so offended by what he was witnessing, and I don't blame him. But one would think on a team that has is playing for some stakes, things will be a little bit different. Yeah, I mean, you brought up the defense, which is the elephant in the room. So I don't again, Jalen Brunson's on the team. Karl-Anthony Towns is on the team. Jordan Clarkson's going to play real minutes. It seems to me that they're going not only all in on offense and all in on more depth, but also the belief that their defensive performance last year was not purely personnel based. Because if they thought it was purely personnel based, I'm not, even on the veteran minimum, I'm just not sure that he's the guy you go after. I think if you're the front office, and unless you just don't have a clue, I think you have to believe that something about the defensive infrastructure this year will be more solid, even with largely the same personnel. Because otherwise, why would you be bringing in a player that, again, very clearly has that a significant weakness on that end of the court?
Well, it's a trade-off. You're getting the offensive portion. You're sacrificing the defense. And there are going to be times where fans will be pulling their hair out about Jordan Clarkson. And I understand, but then I'd point to any veteran minimum or play a veteran signed to the minimum contract. Find one that isn't going to make you probably do that. And as we were talking, by the way, should mention Gary Trent Jr. off the board. He is back with the Milwaukee Bucks. He signed a 2-year contract for $7.5 million. And if you're thinking, wow, I can't believe the Knicks didn't sign Gary Trent Jr. to the tax pyramid level or use that same amount, I think that should go back to what I was trying to convey in the cap or no cap. His value is not where consensus is. Like, fans are a lot higher on Gary Trent Jr. than the league is. They just are. I know he made a lot of money, but I think that teams learn from that he's just not the guy. And no matter what spin is said by any media or reporter about how much Gary Trent Jr. loves the opportunity to run it back in Milwaukee with Giannis Antetokounmpo, whatever it is, this is someone in a market, especially with Beasley out of the picture, who could have made more money elsewhere and was restricted to signing for less than in the full non-taxpayer, or excuse me, less than the full taxpayer mid-level exception equivalent.
I would actually. So this to me is let's do this, and then I don't know if we have any super chats. Kev's on the ones and twos. Let me know if we have any. If we do, we'll get to them after this. I think, look, put aside the ideal player that you'd want for the Knicks roster. The ideal player you'd want for the Knicks roster, plays in Denver. But okay, what would you want? You would want maybe a starting two who can defend and who can also shoot and who could maybe pass it really well and create. Well, great. You've just described the max player, so that's not realistic. Within the bounds of reason and what was reasonably going to be available to them, I think there's an argument that Jordan Clarkson fills more of a need than someone like Gary Trent Jr., who I know that we discussed the defensive metrics for Gary Trent Jr. and they were not pretty. I don't think anyone would argue against the fact that Gary Trent Jr. is a stronger defender than Jordan Clarkson.
Low bar, but yes. Agreed.
Yes, it's a low bar, but yes. And he's a great shooter. No question about that. But he's a more limited offensive player, right? He's a more limited offensive player. He'll give you the shooting. He gives you, like, if you squint, maybe passable defense. Maybe gives you a little bit more size. I actually don't even know. For all I know, Jordan Clarkson's taller than Gary Trent Jr. I don't think he is, but regardless, I think the Knicks needed more along the lines of someone who can, just to put a word on it, who could play make, which is to say, create their own shot, create shots for others, get into the teeth of the dribble, or get into the teeth of the defense off the dribble. What did the Knicks not do that it seemed like all the good teams in the playoffs were doing? It seemed like other teams had all these different guys who were just beating their men off the dribble. And the Knicks didn't really have that, And now the Knicks got another guy who could beat their man off the dribble. So I think the combination of that skill, beating guys off the dribble, plus being able to make a pass on the drive. And then when you factor in this guy is teams will guard him above the break. And I don't think we could just gloss over that point. I know the focus is always on corner threes. And in essence, as you just made the argument, why this is a good thing for the Knicks corner three percentages because of him as a passer. the fact that teams are going to have to guard him above the break, I think that that's notable. And he's one of those guys where I know what the percentages are. He's been above the break. I mean, I'll just go down really quick here. No, that's frequency, accuracy. So last several years above the break, he is 36%. Year before that, 28%, 33, 32, 36, 36, 33, 34. So he's right around that, like 34, 35, like right around that area where, like, okay, our team's really going to guard him. I think he's a guy that teams will always guard if he's above the break. And I think that's important for any time he's on the floor with the Knicks' other premium players.
He also, it's slightly different, but if we're comparing from Cameron Payne's perspective, he takes a lot of the above the break from, I think it's the strong side.
Oh, so, I don't know. Maybe.
Like, essentially, again, it's not the same exact spot. It's a little bit over and a little to the right and a little bit over to the left for his. But if you look at the shot charts of the two of them, they kind of hover. But then Jordan Clarkson's able to extend more towards the weak side as well. So it's a little bit more versatility with top of the key and above the break in general. But yeah, that's his profile. And again, if fans are accepting of the bargain bin shopping you have to do to get someone that's good on a veteran minimum, it's all relative. It's like you wouldn't go to TJ Maxx for Louis Vuitton. You go to TJ Maxx because you want something that's more. Well, I mean, God bless, brother, because that is.
I hit up that sell rack. I go right to the sell rack when I walk into a TJ Maxx or a Marshalls.
Right, or a Ross stores, all of them. That's wholesale. You're fine. They're good bargain bin finds, but the store it's general,
there for a reason.
It's offloaded merchandise from the providers. So so that's essentially what this is. Danny Ainge offloaded Jordan Clarkson's contract by eating almost all of it, and Clarkson then went and signed with the Knicks. So relatively speaking, it makes sense.
And let's one more thing here. This ties directly into the Colin Sexton trade, because the Colin Sexton trade on its face is inexplicable.
Mm-hmm.
It is a team trading a far better player for a worse player for no reason other than that they just want to be worse.
Oh, you forgot something too. Sorry,
what?
Real quick. They threw in a second round pick too.
Yes, they did. And there's just no arguing otherwise. Like, yeah, we could talk about how Colin Sexton maybe isn't worth the amount that he's getting paid. He's due another contract. Maybe he wants to get paid again. Maybe the Jazz didn't want to deal with that. All that's all well and good. Like, you don't see teams punt like that before a season has even started. And I bring that up to say, yes, Jordan Clarkson got bought out. And yes, because he got bought out, he was available for the veterans minimum. And look, if there was another team that really wanted him and had a similar opportunity that could have paid him more money, is it reasonable to expect he would have gone to that team? We don't know for sure. But like, so he's a veteran minimum player, which means he's a veteran minimum player. I get all of that. I still don't think this was a normal situation, you know? And I just don't think this is the caliber of player you would usually get that would find themselves in this sort of a situation. Especially at this point in their career when he's not like, he's like you said, he's 33. He's not, he's not ancient. All right. You want to take some super chats and then, unless there's anything else.
No, let's do it.
Okay. Hazu, Mr. Horford, we got a cool 5.7 waiting for you. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It seems like Golden State's going to be where he goes. The basketball fan in me wants him to go to Golden State because I just think that would be such a perfect landing spot for him. And like I said, I can't even sit here and say like, oh, the basketball fit would be perfect with the Knicks. I don't think it would. I think the Knicks would love to have him, but I don't know. Yeah, I just I'm not sure about that. But I wouldn't mind it. Thanks, Hush.
Yeah, don't think it's gonna happen.
Delsky, should a Mike Brown style offense benefit Jordan Clarkson the same way it did for Monk? Well, in Sacramento. Yeah, I don't know what I would say a Mike Brown style offense is. I think the reason Mike Brown's been a successful head coach is he has been pretty adaptable. I think his thing in Sacramento was he really upped the pace. If you look at their frequency of transition plays, I wrote about this a few days ago. I think they were 15th in the league the year before Mike Brown took over, and they were second in the league his first year as a head coach in terms of frequency of transition plays. They also changed their shot diet a lot. They had been much heavier into mid-rangers and not as much into, I think it's corner threes. It might have just been all threes, but they upped their the frequency of 3-point shots under Mike Brown again in that first year. But they just flew, and they put a lot of skill on the floor. And, was the defense, the rankings were respectable. I don't, but I think Mike Brown from the day he took that job was like, we're going to score. If we defend, we'll win. I think that was always his philosophy. I would imagine he'll have a similar philosophy here, except he'll have some extraordinarily talented defensive players to work with. Like, who was the best defender on the first year he was in Sacramento? Who was the best defender even on that team? It was the starting lineup was Sabonis. They started the Murray kid as a rookie.
Keegan's been a good defender, I believe.
Yeah, but he was a rookie then.
Sure, but even then, I think yes, yeah.
He was okay, but for a rookie. And then Fox, Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes is a decent defender. But like that's it. We're talking about Harrison Barnes.
Remind me which year? 21, 22?
Mike Brown's first year. It was 22-23 was Mike Brown's first year in Sacramento. Hold on. Why am I guessing here? I guess my point is that he's going to have more, if it is Mike Brown, and it seems like it's going to be. I think he's going to have a lot more defensively to work for. He's also going to have some weak spots, but I think the signing would seem to indicate that he's going to really lean into, or the next coach will have to lean heavily into the offense. Kevin Huerter was on that team. Davion Mitchell played 18 minutes a game. So again, he was a rookie, but he was a good defensive player. Was he actually might have been a second-year player, but whatever. He's got some guys to work with now. So we'll see.
It's actually a pretty terrible overall what he was able to do with that 2022-23 team. There's a lot of right. That was the first year, right? 2022-23. Yeah, it's Terrence Davis, Kessler Edwards, Matthew Dellavedova, PJ Dozier, Davion Mitchell, Okpala. Harrison Barnes, Okpala. Those are their best defenders that year.
Yeah, I mean, look, their defensive rating was not good. I think they finished 24th in the league in defense.
Yes.
Yeah, it was not good, but yeah, we'll see what he could do here. Thanks, Delsky. Jason, what's going on, Jason? I love that Clarkson's skill set is different from Kolek's. They could play together or mix and match with Deuce based on the game plan and optionality. Man, does the percentage, whatever percentage you would have put on Deuce McBride starting next season at the 2 yesterday, after this signing, has that percentage changed at all for you?
Well, even though they don't have to do starters bench, have to figure that the Josh Hart, Jordan Clarkson connection that they have dating back to the Laker days, maybe it's nice to be on the same page. If you're starting Hart, probably fewer opportunities to play with Clarkson. If you're bringing him off the bench, you might have more, which then might usher in someone like Deuce starting. So perhaps. And I will say, if Mike Brown's here, I can understand people saying, well, he didn't really love playing Keon Ellis much, so maybe he won't with Deuce McBride. They're completely different players. completely different people. So I don't think that it's anything to do with that they have a similar archetype. They're just very different. Where I don't, and again, Mike Brown's not even the head coach. So if he were here, I can see that being a school of thought, but that's different. We're talking about Keon Ellis, who is now entering his third year in the league, fourth year.
Fourth, I think.
Yeah, Deuce McBride's a bit older, a little bit more gray in the beard, despite having no gray at all. But yeah, I think you could absolutely have Deuce starting. In terms of what Jason's saying, I'm just trying to figure out where the minutes are between Clarkson and Kolek. And I know that these things often have a way of working themselves out, but there are going to be times where they don't. And there are only so many mouths to feed. And you asked me earlier, or you mentioned something about, we were talking about Gary Trent Jr., with kind of like what it shows and why the Knicks needing ball handling. And they, yes, absolutely agree. But I feel like this is a pretty strong indication that the Knicks, barring anything substantial, want to invest in Pacome Dadier. Because if I'm thinking of a player who fits
not
really nice,
no,
it's not, because he didn't play much last year and because he's 19 years old.
Yeah.
But if I'm the Knicks and I've invested something into this kid as well, I want him to keep growing. I want him, and we know that the defense can be good in the limited time that we've seen. He's done very well at the G League level. How he continues to prove himself at the NBA level is to be determined. But I could see him gelling very well with a player like Clarkson because he masks some of the defensive issues, because he's a bigger wing, how you're able to mix and match accordingly. So
I sign me up for Pacome Dadier playing any role on this team next year. I would love nothing more. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate that. Next up, we got to do Hush with another one. Thanks for all the contributions tonight, Hush. On a cold December night, I can't wait to overreact to Clarkson 30-point game against the Wizards. If not Harford, how do we feel about Nance Jr.? I've said for years I would love Larry Nance Jr. as a Knick. I think you could probably get him on the veterans minimum. I think he makes a lot of sense. I don't know. Actually, take a step back. The top 8 right now, barring any trades, are extremely set. It's the starters for most of last year, plus Mitch, Deuce, and Jordan Clarkson. There is no clear ninth man as of right now. You could say it's Tyler Kolek. You could say it's, well, I guess you could say it's Tyler Kolek. I guess you could say it's Ariel Haporti.
Or Dadier.
You could say it's Pacome Dadier.
I don't know. He's very under the radar for you, I suppose.
He is. What's below? What's the next level underneath? What's under the radar?
God.
Magma?
Sure. We'll go with that. It's
the point is, if there was a notable player who was thinking about signing for the Knicks with the Knicks for the veterans minimum, there is a rotation spot here, in theory. Maybe not in actuality, but in theory, there's a rotation spot here. So we'll see if that influences anything. But I would love Larry Nance Jr. Thanks, Hush.
I think he'll stay in Atlanta for whatever it's worth. They're building a good team. They've had a great summer.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm top 4 Hawks bandwagon quite yet, but I might get there. I don't know.
Even still, I think they're well put together, and I think based on how their summer has gone, I'd call it a very good success.
Oh, it's a great summer. I just don't know how high do you want to elevate them. We'll see.
There are levels to it. Absolutely.
There are levels. Next up, Javier Montalvo. Why no love for Gary Trent Jr.? How about Cam Whitmore? Well, we talked about Gary Trent Jr. You want to? I mean, Cam Whitmore. I don't know if that's happening.
Whitmore, you have to trade for him, so you are trading salary out, whether it's a sign and trade. But then, why does Houston necessarily want that? Or you're trading a good piece out. So who's it going to be that makes around that salary? Is it going to be Tyler Kolek? Sure, it could, but then again, to me, I would rather see Dadier have time. But in terms of why no love for Gary Trent Jr., laid it out during the cap or no cap. But essentially, I think he benefits massively from being in a system with Giannis, and he hit corner threes for the first time, really. But he's a very below average defensive guard who doesn't have nearly enough wiggle offensively, and he's fine, but he's not. Let's tap into our taxpayer mid-level fine. And there's now not really a need for him. Like, based on how the Knicks operate and guys who have the ball in their hands, I'd rather go to Shamet and try to bring Shamet back. I mean, obviously you can't bring Gary Trent Jr. He's already signed, but if you were looking for someone to space the floor in that capacity and you had the option of Trent or Shamet on the minimum, I'd take Shamet on the minimum over Trent earning something that hard caps you.
I don't know. I think that's probably worth a longer discussion. I was a bigger fan of Trent Jr. than you. I would prefer, as I said, Clarkson and Cam Whitmore. I think that would be a nice move for a younger team that would be able to give him room to kind of spread his wings. I don't know that I ever saw the Knicks kicking the tires there. Thanks, Javier. David Crockett with another one. So, is what I'm hearing you say, Jeremy, that Mitch may actually get a lob or two this season?
He very well might. If he's playing with Jordan Clarkson, he very well might.
Something else Jordan Clarkson does, just for whatever it's worth, gets to the line. 5.4 free throw attempts per 36 minutes last year. That's actually been a part of his game that has improved over the course of his career. So that's notable. Do we have another super chat? I'm not. If we do, okay. Swaggy OG, low risk, high reward, just good business. Get a 3-and-D wing, and I'm good. Well, I'm not sure where you're getting the 3-and-D wing.
Well, off the 3-and-D tree, of course.
Yeah. You know who's the 3-and-D wing? Jeremy was talking about him a few minutes ago. It's Pacome Dadier. If there is a 3-and-D wing off the bench for this team, a real one, at any point this year, it's going to be Pacome Dadier. Like, I'm looking right now at the free agency tracker. The closest thing you have to a 3-and-D wing still left on the market. Jesus Christ.
Swaggy, the good ones are really hard to get, and the bad ones are missing a whole lot on one end or the other.
Can I interest you in some lightly used Gary Harris? Alec Burks. Alec Burks. Come on down, Alec Burks.
I think Jordan Clarkson is going to eat up those minutes.
I think so too. It's just I'm literally looking at the list right now. There's just nothing.
It's hard to find. You have to trade for him.
Exactly, which is why you see the trades for Mikal Bridges and Desmond Bane. Like, it's the most it remains the most premium position other than a superstar shot creator in the league. And so those guys are not just growing off trees. Okay. We got three more, and then I have to settle a bit of business with Jeremy. Kevin Danishevsky, fine with Clarkson, but we couldn't get Gary Trent Jr. at 3.75. Sorry, Kevin.
Now you're just saying this to piss me off. I'm not going to take the bait anymore.
Why would Kevin ever want to piss you off? I have no idea.
It's a great question.
Thank you, Kevin. Another one. My hot take is that I'd pick the Hawks to win the East. You know what, Kev? How about shout out to our friends at Fanatic Sportsbook? You can mosey on down into your old Fanatic Sportsbook app and make that futures wager right now. I'm sure there's a place in there to bet it. And let me know how you do with that betting slip. I will not be rooting for you. Thanks, Kev. And
I love how it's the reason is that it's because you want the Knicks to win the East, but the way it comes off is poor Kevin being like, I hope you lose your money.
I don't know what to say. Well, Oliver, he's been riding in Utah. He will come here hungry. Hey, listen, I'm all here for it. Like,
yeah,
look, the dream comparison, and it's not going to be this because this guy came to the Knicks and he was probably their best player. It was Derrick Rose. He spent a couple years in Detroit, kind of reclaim different career arc, obviously, than Jordan Clarkson. Derrick Rose was essentially out of the league and then kind of resuscitated his career in a significant way in Detroit, and then came to the Knicks, and it was like magic. I would not put it past Jordan Clarkson to be in the running for Sixth Man of the Year next season. I really wouldn't. I'm not gonna pick him for that because I just think there's a lot of uncertainty, but I would not. I don't think it's out of the question. I'll say that. All right. Oh, we have two more. Okay. Abe Eckstein. Any chance for Ayton? Abe, with all of my, you know what? I lied before when I said Russell Westbrook was my least favorite player in the league. If the Knicks signed DeAndre Ayton, I don't know what I would do. I would light something on fire. Maybe not myself, but something of significance.
I would hate it. I would really hate it.
You hear about players who are all about the right things. DeAndre Ayton is the complete opposite of that. He is, if there is a wrong thing that one could be about as a professional basketball player, he is about it. Let him go to the Lakers, which is apparently where he's headed. That's just not what we do. Not need to be in the DeAndre Ayton business.
Another team that's rumored is Milwaukee, and it's like if there's a player to send Giannis running for the hills, people can mature, they can grow over time, but everything about his body language, and you can still find a way to win with him because the fact that look, the Suns were 2 wins away from a championship with him, and yet his entire body of work tells us that he's very much about DeAndre Ayton, and that would worry me here in New York, and I think for any team.
By the way, Jake Fisher had this. I missed it. Possibility of a Malik Monk for Dennis Schroeder sign and trade, in which case Malik Monk would go to Detroit. I do not want to see Malik Monk go to the Pistons. I'll just put that out there right now.
The less talent on the Pistons, the better. I agree.
Yeah, they're already a nasty SOB of a team to deal with. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Abe. And then Jason, do you think Shaman is coming back? I say yes.
I'll say yes as well.
Okay.
But all right. Just one more thought on that. If they consolidate the roster at all, because right now I don't see a spot for Shamet per se. Do you agree?
I don't see a spot for him, but I don't know that there's any team in the league that would have a guarantee or not a guarantee, but like a likely rotation spot for him.
And if he's cool being the 10th man, living in Manhattan, he loves the West Side, it's fine.
Swaggy wants to know if Pacome is ready, then I'm in. Solid upside. I think that pick was about more than just taking a guy who was willing to accept 80% of the rookie scale. I'm very excited to see what he does in Summer League. I'll say that'd be cool if he actually showed up Summer League and showed out. Okay. The most important moment of the live stream. You ready for this?
Yes.
It's on Spotrac, so I'm not making it up. Bruce Brown Jr. 1 year, $3,080,921.
All right, one old fashioned coming right up.
I will travel into the city later in the summer to pick up my winnings, and round 2 will be on me. Hold on, Kevin Danishevsky has one more. I'm gonna let you read this one, Jeremy.
Sure. Kevin says Gary Trent Jr. equals 55th defensive EPM or better every year. Quote, below average defense. That's not true. He was in the 40th percentile last year, the 30th percentile on defense last year, 52nd, then the 63rd, the 16th, the 62nd, and the 21st. So, Kevin, I don't know where your facts are, but they're wrong.
You listen.
I'm looking at the same stats you are, pal.
Here.
Maybe you're looking at the EPM instead.
It is 11:17 p.m. I have a strict off-season rule about I am not live streaming past midnight if the Knicks are not playing basketball games. So if anybody wants to hear further conversation or back and forth between Jeremy and Kevin, be sure to tune into KFS After Dark, where
Nope.
they will have it out
I'm
over
good.
EPMs and DPMs and
Nope.
BPMs, and I would start naming like Mets and Yankees players, but I don't know who any of them are.
No need. I've already corrected Kevin on something he's wrong about, but I appreciate him paying me to tell me he's wrong. So thank you, buddy.
On that note,
he could have just DM'd me as well. I would have happily acknowledged it, but no, he wanted to embarrass me, and instead, it just doesn't look great.
Matt S.
Not for me though.
This is fantastic. Matt Ainge gifting us Clarkson was not on my bingo card.
Mm-mm.
I will say what I said earlier. I think if you look at the Sexton trade and this Clarkson waiver, it's gross mismanagement. It's absolutely gross mismanagement of assets, and I think, and we'll see what happens with Markkanen, but he had opportunities to get decent value for these guys at a time when he was not trying to win basketball games. He was not trying to win basketball games previously, and he did not opt to make those deals then. Why? If I was a Jazz fan, I would be like, I don't know. I feel like I'd be pretty upset, but because there's just no reason for it. But I'm not a Jazz fan, thankfully.
Fortunately.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to Kev, not Kevin Danishevsky, Kev, the producer. Although thanks, Kev Danishevsky, too. And thanks to all of our followers, watchers, viewers, the whole thing. We will be back whenever the Knicks do something else, which will be at some point in time in the future. Until then, everybody enjoy. I was about to say enjoy your weekend. It's fucking Monday.
It is Monday.
Enjoy your week.
I'll say one last thing.
Yes.
There's one last thing. As someone whose girlfriend is Filipino and black, I'm happy Jordan Clarkson's here.
Is he half Filipino and half black?
He is.
That's
representation. Awesome. It matters. I'm happy for it. It's
what a way to
added reason. There you go.
Amazing.
The more you know.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have a good night.